Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Ethan Collins had never understood why his own parents seemed to hate him from the moment he was born. Every look, every word from John and Linda Collins was tinged with rejection. "You should have been like them," his mother would repeat, as if his mere appearance was enough to justify indifference and cruelty. At school, the teasing piled up, other kids called him weird or loser. But at home, it was worse. Every failed smile, every rejected hug, every scathing remark planted a seed of loneliness and determination within him. Ethan took refuge in books, in his dreams, and in the idea that one day he would prove to everyone that a man's worth isn't measured by his appearance, but by the strength of his mind and the depth of his courage. Years passed. The rejected boy became a silent but ambitious young man, fueled by the fire of injustice and the hope of revenge that would leave no room for oblivion. What neither of his parents knew yet was that this child they had despised would one day return to their lives, and that his visit would be terrifying. Ethan Collins was barely 6 years old when his parents began to show their true colors. John and Linda Collins couldn't stand his appearance. His slightly different skin tone, his slightly larger-than-average eyes, his slight stature, everything seemed to irritate them. Every time he tried to hug or smile, they looked away, sometimes even with cruel words. "Why can't you be normal like other kids? Stop shaming this family." At school, the teasing was constant. The other kids only amplified this rejection. "You're weird, why are you like this?" they would shout in the playground, and Ethan would walk home with his head down and his heart heavy. But what hurt him most was seeing his parents do nothing to help him. Yet Ethan wasn't broken. He found refuge in books, imagining worlds where beauty and success weren't measured by appearances. He spent hours drawing, writing, and dreaming of a future where he would be recognized for his intelligence and determination, not his looks. Each humiliation forged his character. He learned never to depend on the approval of others, to observe without judgment, and to keep his ambitions secret. For he knew something his parents didn't: the day would come when they would regret underestimating the child they had rejected. And that day, Ethan knew, would not just be a day of confrontation, but a day of revenge. At 18, Ethan Collins made a decision that would change his life forever. One night, after yet another humiliation at the hands of his parents, he packed his things, took one last look at the house that had always rejected him, and left Springfield without looking back. New York was his choice. A vast city, where no one knew him, where he could reinvent his destiny. The first few months were difficult. He sometimes slept on benches, worked a series of low-paying jobs, but never lost sight of his goal. Each obstacle strengthened his determination. Ethan soon realized he needed to transform his image as much as his mind. He worked on his posture, his speech, his clothing style. Slowly, the frail and shy boy became a stylish, charismatic, and confident young man. His childhood scars were no longer visible on the outside, but they had left an impressive inner strength. At the same time, he embarked on studies in technology and entrepreneurship. His days were long, his nights short, but each effort brought him closer to the life he had promised himself. He learned to master the codes of success, to seduce with his intelligence and to command respect without ever raising his voice. Little by little, the rejected boy transformed into a man capable of changing the course of his life and impressing those who had once despised him. And deep in his heart, an idea was maturing: one day, his parents would understand that their rejection had only forged a giant they had never been able to see. After years of hard work, Ethan Collins began to reap the rewards of his determination. His company, Collins Tech, specializing in technology and cybersecurity, quickly became known for its innovation and reliability. Investors flocked to him, impressed by his vision and ability to solve the most complex problems. Ethan had become a man no one could ignore. His natural charisma and imposing elegance commanded respect and admiration. He was no longer the frail, shy boy who had been rejected. Now he walked down the street with confidence, and every glance he received reflected a silent recognition. Yet his success wasn't just material. Ethan had learned to master human relationships, to spot people's intentions, and to never let anyone manipulate him. Every past failure, every childhood humiliation, had become a strategic lesson, a tool for building an empire. But deep down, he held a more personal goal intact, to prove to his parents that their rejection had been the biggest mistake of their lives. He knew that one day he would return to the house that had seen him grow up in pain, no longer as a vulnerable child, but as a man no one would dare ignore. Ethan Collins was no longer Springfield's outcast. He was the man his parents had always refused to see. And soon, they would realize that the boy they had despised now held the power to change their lives, forever. One sunny spring morning, as Ethan worked in his elegant office in the heart of Manhattan, an unexpected envelope arrived. The family seal, faded by time, bore his parents' names. Invitation to family dinner, the inscription inside read. At first glance, this might have seemed trivial. But Ethan knew better than anyone that John and Linda Collins never invited their children over without a reason. Their curiosity, mixed with pretend concern, always hid a mixture of control and condescension. Ethan smiled softly. After all these years, he saw this invitation as an opportunity, an opening carefully placed by fate to make them realize their past error. He held no destructive resentment, but a clear intention, to show them, calmly and precisely, that he was no longer the boy they had despised. He spent the day preparing himself, not only physically but mentally. He chose his words, his appearance, every detail. His impeccable suit, his confident stance, his assured gaze, everything would be a silent demonstration of the transformation he had undergone. Ethan's heart beat with a quiet energy. He wasn't just going to come back to that house for dinner. He was going to return as a man in control of his own destiny, ready to teach them the quiet but unforgettable lesson his parents had long deserved. This dinner, he thought, wouldn't just be a meal. It would be the moment when past and present met, and the rejected boy finally became the man his parents might never recognize. Ethan's car stopped in front of the old house in Springfield, the one where he had grown up under the weight of rejection and indifference. The white walls were the same, the garden tended by attentive hands, but for Ethan, every detail stirred painful memories. He stepped out of the car calmly, his suit perfectly tailored, his gait assured. Each step seemed to echo in the silent courtyard, like an echo of times gone by. His parents, sitting on the porch, looked up at his arrival and were frozen. The man standing before them was nothing like the boy they had once rejected. Linda Collins forced a smile, while John Collins cleared his throat, visibly nervous. "Ethan, is that you?" John stammered, as if reality was having a hard time settling in. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He watched his parents with a mixture of calm and coldness, noting every tremor in their hands, every hesitation in their eyes. He could feel the silent fear beginning to set in, subtle but very present. Then he entered the house, every movement measured, every gesture revealing total control. He sat at the living room table, letting his parents rush around offering him tea and hors d'oeuvres, as if they were trying to redeem years of neglect with clumsy gestures. Ethan didn't react to the attempts at normalcy. He let them talk, letting their words betray their nervousness and guilt. This dinner wasn't about small talk, it was a silent scene where past and present collided, where the rejected boy had become a man his parents could neither ignore nor control. At that precise moment, Ethan knew he had already won. The fear and astonishment in John and Linda Collins's eyes were the first warning of the terrifying lesson he was about to teach them. Dinner progressed slowly. Ethan listened as his parents tried to fill the silence with awkward questions. "So, what are you up to?" He smiled, leaving a slight suspense hanging in the air. "I've traveled a lot," he began calmly. "I've worked hard, learned, built." His words were carefully chosen, each sentence calculated to keep his parents guessing without immediately understanding everything. Then, slowly, he began to detail his journey. How he had left Springfield at 18, penniless but with unwavering determination. How he had faced the hardships, the sleepless nights, the humiliations, and transformed each obstacle into a step toward his success. "I founded Collins Tech," he announced, his voice calm but firm. "Today, I lead an international company, recognized for innovation in technology and cybersecurity." His parents' eyes widened. Linda looked away, trying to hide her shock, while John remained frozen, unable to find words. They hadn't expected the boy they had rejected to grow up to be a powerful and respected man. Ethan didn't just recount his financial successes. He explained how each humiliation and rejection had shaped his mind, his discipline, and his intelligence. Every detail of his story was a silent lesson, a cruel but accurate reminder of how much they had ignored. He let the revelation sink in, silently watching the transformation in their eyes, from surprise to disbelief, then to dawning fear. What they had underestimated all these years was no longer a fragile child, but a man capable of regaining control of his life, and making them feel the weight of their mistake. The dinner, which should have been ordinary, was now the scene of a subtle but relentless revenge. Ethan hadn't yet acted openly, but the lesson was beginning to sink in. They had rejected the wrong child, and the one they had ignored had become the one who now held power. After recounting his career and achievements, Ethan let a heavy silence fall around the table. His parents, still in shock, tried to compose themselves, but Ethan gave them no respite. Then, in a calm but sharp voice, he declared, "You may be wondering why I came back." John and Linda exchanged a worried look. "Well, let me enlighten you." Ethan pulled a file from his briefcase and placed it in front of them. He detailed, in detail, how he had bought the family home, taken control of the neglected financial accounts, and even invested in some local businesses. Each word resonated like a clap of thunder. "This house belongs to me now. You are no longer the decision-makers here." Linda blanched, John stood frozen, unable to speak. Years of contempt and rejection had just turned against them with relentless force. Ethan wasn't humiliating them with insults, but every word, every gesture, demonstrated his power, his control, and their helplessness. "You rejected me because I was different. You ignored me, belittled me, but all these years have made me what you see today. And now you understand that your opinion never mattered." The reversal was complete. The boy they had believed weak and vulnerable had become the man who decided their fate. Fear, regret, and disbelief were evident in their eyes. Ethan knew he didn't even need to raise his voice for the message to be clear. They had lost all control over him, and their past cruelty had just become their greatest lesson. Ethan watched his parents, still frozen in front of him. He didn't seek to humiliate them with shouts or reproaches. His power lay in his control, in his heavy silence and calculated words. "You spent years judging me for who I was on the outside," he said calmly. "But what you never understood is that a man's true worth lies in his inner strength." Linda looked down, while John clenched his fists on the table, aware that every word was a truth they had long refused to see. Ethan continued. "This house, these accounts, everything you thought you controlled, I now have in my hands. You will have to learn to live within your own means. You will have to reflect on your mistakes, and understand that rejection and cruelty have consequences." He gave them no chance to argue or protest. His voice, calm but firm, admitted no negotiation. The lesson was simple: they had underestimated the child they had rejected, and now they had to face the consequences. "I'm not here to destroy you," he added, "but to show you that every action has its price. You've lost years of my life, and I'll never give them back. It's up to you to decide how you'll continue to live." For the first time, his parents understood that their son was no longer the one they had known. The fragile and despised boy was gone. Before them stood a powerful, respected, and implacable man, capable of changing their lives with a single gesture or word. Ethan's lesson wasn't just financial or material, it was a lesson in respect, responsibility, and awareness. A lesson that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. After delivering his lesson, Ethan calmly rose from his chair. His parents sat frozen, unable to respond. The tension in the room was palpable, a mixture of fear, regret, and incomprehension. Ethan grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Each step echoed like a silent affirmation of his victory. He didn't look back. He didn't need any more words to seal his triumph. As he left home, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Years of resentment, frustration, and pain had come to a peaceful but firm conclusion. He hadn't sought to destroy his parents or publicly humiliate them. His goal had always been to regain control of his life and show that rejection could never again define him. In his car, as he drove toward Manhattan, Ethan felt a profound peace. Freedom wasn't just financial or material, it was the freedom to be fully himself, without fear, without judgment, and without attachment to the hurts of the past. Behind him, his parents remained in the family home, facing the reality of their mistake. And for Ethan, every mile he traveled symbolized a future where he would never again be trapped by the pain others had tried to impose on him. The revenge was silent, but complete. And for the first time since childhood, Ethan Collins felt completely free. In the following weeks, Ethan resumed his life in Manhattan, immersed in his work and projects. But this time, he moved forward with a newfound confidence and serenity. Every decision, every action, was imbued with the power acquired over the years and through hardships. His parents, meanwhile, remained in the family home, forced to reevaluate their lives. Years of contempt and rejection had left an indelible mark, and their son's lessons still resonated in every room. They had learned, too late, that love and respect are not dictated by appearances, but by the heart and the recognition of the value of others. Ethan, however, had no desire for gratuitous revenge. His triumph lay in his transformation, in living proof that rejection can be transformed into strength. He had turned pain into ambition, humiliation into determination, and rejection into freedom. Through this experience, he knew he had become more than just an accomplished man, he was a symbol of resilience and success for all those who had once been scorned or ignored. The outcast boy from Springfield no longer existed. He had made his life a shining demonstration that no one can underestimate a determined heart and an unwavering spirit. Ethan Collins, free, strong, and respected, now moved toward a future where the past held no chains, only lessons etched in the memories of those who had once rejected it.